The rain was pouring the night he left. One suitcase, one slammed door, and silence heavier than thunder. Maria stood there in the living room, her 2 children asleep in the next room, her chest tight with fear. She wanted to cry, to collapse, to scream. But instead, she whispered to herself, "I have to be strong. For them." That was the night Maria became both mother and father. Alone, but not defeated. Scared, but determined. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Bills waiting on the table, long shifts at work, the loneliness of nights without a partner. But she also knew something stronger than despair lived inside her. The unshakable love for her children. The next morning, as sunlight broke through the curtains, Maria brewed coffee in her tiny kitchen and packed 2 school lunches with care. Her daughter, only 6, walked in rubbing her eyes. "Mommy, will Daddy come back?" Maria's heart ached, but she knelt, looked into her little girl's eyes and said softly, "Maybe not. But you know what? You and your brother will always have me. Always." And in that moment, she decided that abandonment would not define their story. Strength would. Love would. Her children would never feel empty, because she would fill those spaces with double the care, double the laughter, and double the love. This is not a story of loss. This is a story of resilience, hope, and a mother who became the strength of 2 hearts. The first weeks felt like walking through a storm with no umbrella. Bills stacked on the kitchen counter, each envelope shouting a reminder of what she didn't have. At night, Maria sat at the table after the kids were asleep, pencil in hand, scribbling numbers, cutting corners, wondering how far she could stretch a paycheck. She took on extra hours at the diner, her feet aching after 12-hour shifts. Some nights, she barely had the energy to stand. But when she opened the apartment door and saw her children running into her arms, every drop of exhaustion seemed to dissolve. Their laughter was her fuel, their hugs her reward. The neighbors whispered, "Poor girl, raising 2 kids alone." But Maria chose not to listen. She wasn't poor, she was powerful. Every sandwich she packed, every bedtime story she read, every smile she managed to give after a long day, it was proof that she could do this. One evening, her son brought home a crayon drawing. It showed Maria with a cape, standing tall, her children beside her. Across the top, in shaky handwriting, it read, "My supermom." Tears blurred her vision as she pinned it to the fridge. In that instant, she realized something important. She wasn't failing. She was building a new story, one where love and perseverance would always win. Maria wasn't just surviving. She was showing her children what strength looked like. Life seemed to finally find a rhythm. Until one evening, Maria came home to find a note on the kitchen counter. The diner was cutting back staff, and her hours would be reduced. Her chest tightened. Rent was due. Groceries needed to be bought. And now, less income. For a moment, fear tried to creep in. She sat on the edge of the bed, head in her hands, whispering a prayer she wasn't even sure would be heard. But then her daughter walked in, carrying a small jar full of coins. "Mommy, this is for you," she said proudly. "It's my savings. We can share." Maria hugged her little girl so tightly she could feel her heartbeat. She realized then that while money could come and go, what they had, unity, love, resilience, could never be taken away. Determined not to give up, Maria got creative. She started baking muffins in the evenings, selling them at school drop-offs and to neighbors. It wasn't much, but every dollar helped. More importantly, her children watched her turn a setback into a solution. Instead of seeing defeat, they saw perseverance. One night, as they all sat around the small table eating warm muffins together, her son smiled with chocolate on his cheeks and said, "Mommy, you always find a way." And she did. Because failure wasn't an option, not when 2 little hearts depended on her strength. The storm hadn't passed, but Maria was learning how to dance in the rain. The muffins started as a desperate idea, but soon they became something more. Parents at her children's school began to ask for them regularly, and even teachers requested extra batches for meetings. Word spread through the neighborhood. Maria's muffins are the best. What began as a side hustle slowly turned into a steady stream of hope. Each evening, Maria baked while her children sat at the kitchen counter doing homework, the air filled with the sweet scent of chocolate and cinnamon. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about building something with her own hands, about proving to herself that she could rise above. One Saturday morning, she took her kids to the local park. They ran barefoot in the grass, their laughter echoing like music. For the first time in months, Maria let herself breathe. She watched them play, realizing that happiness wasn't a luxury. It was found in these simple moments. As the children came running back, both of them holding wildflowers, they handed them to her proudly. "For you, Mommy. Because you make everything better." Maria's heart swelled. She looked at their little hands, their smiles full of trust, and thought, "I may not have everything, but I have the most important thing. Love." Life was still far from easy, but Maria was no longer surviving. She was beginning to thrive. Just when Maria felt like life was finding balance, the unexpected struck. One night, her son developed a high fever. His small body shook, and his breathing became shallow. Panic surged through her veins as she rushed him to the emergency room, her daughter clinging to her hand. Sitting under the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital, Maria fought to stay calm. Inside, she was terrified. What if something happened to him? What if she couldn't hold her little family together? But she refused to let her children see her fear. Instead, she whispered to her son, "I'm here. You're safe. Mommy's not going anywhere." Hours passed before the doctor returned. Thankfully, it wasn't as grave as she feared. A bad infection that required treatment, but would heal. Relief crashed over her like a wave, and tears finally fell as she kissed her son's forehead. The hospital bill was another weight on her shoulders, but Maria chose not to dwell on it. Money could be figured out later. What mattered most was that her child was safe. That night, as they all returned home, her daughter wrapped small arms around her and whispered, "You're the strongest person I know." Maria smiled through her exhaustion. She realized strength wasn't about never feeling fear. It was about pushing through it, choosing love over despair. Life would keep testing her, but she had already proven she could not be broken. After the long night at the hospital, Maria carried her son home in her arms. He was tired but recovering, his little head resting against her shoulder. Her daughter walked beside them, holding her hand, her eyes full of quiet trust. The days that followed were difficult. Between medicine schedules, lost hours of work, and unpaid bills piling up, Maria felt the weight of the world pressing on her. But every time doubt whispered that she couldn't do this, she looked at her children, their laughter, their drawings, their hugs, and remembered why she kept fighting. One afternoon, while baking muffins to sell, Maria paused. Her son, still weak but smiling, was coloring at the table. Her daughter was humming a song while setting the forks and napkins. It struck her suddenly. They weren't just surviving this life with her. They were thriving because of her. The next day, a neighbor who often bought her muffins stopped by and suggested she bring them to a local market on weekends. At first, Maria hesitated. Fear of failing again lingered. But then she saw her children's hopeful eyes. "You can do it, Mommy," they said together. For the first time, she believed it too. Maria wasn't just holding her family together anymore. She was building a future, one muffin, one sacrifice, one act of love at a time. Saturday morning arrived, and with it, a mixture of nerves and excitement. Maria packed a few trays of muffins into an old wicker basket. Her children hovered around her, their eyes wide with anticipation. For them, This wasn't just muffins. It was their mother's courage, their family's chance. At the market, Maria felt her heart race. Stalls lined the street, colorful awnings, the smell of fresh bread, vegetables, and spices filling the air. She had no table, only a blanket she laid on the ground with her basket carefully placed in the center. For a moment, she almost turned back. Fear whispered, "Who will buy from me?" Then her daughter slipped her small hand into hers and whispered, "Mommy, we believe in you." That was all she needed. The first hour was slow. People passed by, glanced, but didn't stop. Maria forced a smile, offering samples shyly. Just when discouragement started to sink in, an older woman stopped, tasted a muffin, and bought a dozen. Soon, more followed. By noon, her basket was nearly empty. Her children cheered, hugging her tightly. Maria's eyes welled with tears. It wasn't just about the money. It was proof. Proof that she could create, that she could provide, that she could stand tall. That day, in a small corner of the market, Maria discovered more than customers. She discovered her own strength and the beginning of a dream she had never dared to dream. Within weeks, Maria became a familiar face at the Saturday market. People would smile as they passed her small blanket, calling her the Muffin Lady. Some came back every week, bringing friends to try her baked goods. Her children beamed with pride each time a customer complimented their mother. One morning, a woman from a nearby cafe approached her booth. She loved the muffins and asked if Maria could supply them regularly. Maria's heart nearly burst. This was more than just extra income. It was a chance to grow. But just as hope blossomed, reality struck. The cafe required consistent quantities and strict deadlines. Maria didn't own a proper oven. She used the small, aging one in her kitchen, which broke down 2 days after the agreement. Her heart sank. For hours, she sat at the table staring at the broken oven, her children quietly watching her. She thought about canceling, giving up before disappointing anyone. But then her daughter climbed onto her lap and said softly, "Mommy, you always find a way." Maria wiped her tears. The next morning, she borrowed a neighbor's oven, baking late into the night and waking before dawn to finish the order. Exhausted, flour dust in her hair, she carried the boxes to the cafe. The owner was impressed, promising more orders. Maria realized that success wasn't about never falling. It was about rising every time, no matter how heavy the weight. Weeks of long days and sleepless nights began to pay off. Maria's muffins were now in multiple cafes, and her Saturday market table overflowed with loyal customers. But the true reward wasn't the money. It was the look in her children's eyes. One evening, her daughter handed her a carefully folded card. On it were drawings of muffins, hearts, and stick figures of the 3 of them, with a banner at the top reading, "Our Supermom." Her son tugged at her sleeve, shyly whispering, "Mommy, you're the strongest person in the world." Maria's throat tightened. She knelt and hugged them both, feeling the exhaustion melt into something far greater, pride, love, and a quiet triumph that no amount of hardship could steal. That weekend, the children decided to surprise her at the market. They decorated her little blanket with colorful drawings and hand-painted signs. Customers smiled, some even taking photos, unaware of the depth of this small family's journey. Maria looked at her children, her heart swelling. Through sleepless nights, broken ovens, and endless challenges, they had grown stronger together. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were thriving, bound by love, respect, and admiration. In their eyes, she was more than a mother. She was proof that determination, courage, and unshakable love could turn even the hardest trials into triumphs. Months had passed, and Maria's life had transformed. The small kitchen that once felt like a battlefield was now filled with warmth, laughter, and the sweet scent of baked goods. Her business continued to grow. but the true success lay in her children's smiles and confidence. On Father's Day, her daughter handed her a handmade card shaped like a trophy, and her son held a small painted medal. "For the best dad." "And Mom," they said in unison, giggling. Tears blurred Maria's vision. She had been both, and now they celebrated her strength, her love, and her unwavering presence. Maria realized something profound. Family isn't about roles or titles. It's about the love, effort, and dedication we pour into each other. Every long night, every challenge, every tear had built not only her children's future, but also a legacy of courage and resilience. Sitting with them on the couch, she hugged them tightly, feeling the weight of every hardship melt into joy. "We did it, my loves," she whispered. "We're stronger together." Maria's journey is a testament to all mothers. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present. Strength, love, and perseverance can turn the hardest struggles into triumphs. If Maria's story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Join us at Brave Motherhood, where we celebrate real stories of courage, resilience, and unconditional love. Stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of the extraordinary power of a mother's heart.